Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. So, with all the hype abound about the new incoming Mephiston model, I thought it was only right we take a look at the man himself. But no, not quite Mephiston yet. That one we have to wait on. Instead, we are going to take a look at Mephiston before his rebirth from the Black Rage, when he was just a standard Blood Angels librarian named Calistarius. Now, the events we are going to be discussing today are from the short story Sanguius Ire. Now, sorry if I didn't pronounce that quite right, I'm not fluent in Latin, but basically this is included in the novel Sin of Damnation by Gav Thorpe, and this is actually the novel based on the Space Hulk board game, and I really do recommend you read the novel for yourself first. Not only do you get the most enjoyment out of them this way, but we help to support the Great Black Library and Games Workshop, because without them, well, we don't have all this great lore to talk about. I'll put a link to the novel on the Black Library website as always for those that are interested. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, the story kicks off with Calistarius aboard a boarding torpedo heading through the void of space, about to collide with a Space Hulk. He focused on himself and nothing else. A mote of life encased in a ferroline and ceramite cylinder, drifting across the vacuum of space. He enjoyed the feeling of pointlessness. For just a few minutes, Calistarius was totally freed from care. His righteous burden awaited him, but until the boarding torpedo plunged through the metal skin of the Space Hulk, he was free from all responsibility and expectation. His breaths came slowly, inhaling and exhaling in slow rhythm, with the beating of his twin hearts, a soft aftershudder in his chest as his third lung inflated with a slight delay. His cardiopulmonary system was a simple but enchanting quintet piece, occasionally accompanied by a solo percussion creak or ping from the hull of the boarding torpedo. Calistarius had not known music as a child. The closest that the tribes of Baal Secundus came to orchestration was war drums and pyre dirges. It was only when he had passed the trials of the Blood Angels and become a son of Sanguinius that young Calistarius had learnt of instruments, of flute, violin and cymbal. Before that discovery, he had never heard the music inherent in the universe, not until he had been played symphonies composed to emulate the vast array of nature's moods. He had listened with delight, his mind's ear turning screeching chords to the howl of Baal's winds. The petulant percussion of tom-toms converted to the drumming footbeats of a carrion reaper charging over the dunes. A gift from the Blood Angels. Civilization. Art in all its forms. Poetic, literary, visual and military. The legacy of mighty Sanguinius, that the deformed radiation-scarred vagrants of the deserts could be lifted above their station and turned into demigods. Not just a physical transformation, but a mental, cultural uplifting as well. To be defenders of humanity, one needed not only bolters, but a sense of what was so important that it required the keenest sacrifice. The boons of giant physique and razor-sharp mind were simply part of the exchange. In return, every Blood Angel would give his life and death in service to the Emperor and the Imperium of mankind he had created. Now, I think this small little passage is what helps to make the Blood Angels so unique amongst the chapters. For all their flaws, they are a very cultured chapter. They aren't just gene-enhanced warriors, they are invested in the aspects that make humanity and civilization what it is. They value the art and the culture in all its forms, inherited from their Primarch, a gift from the father to his sons, and as such, no doubt, a gift from the Emperor to his son. As it was stated back in the Dark Imperium novel by Belisarius Cawl, the Emperor very much intended these quirks to be within his sons, and thus the legions. They were integral to their makeup. Such a loss for the Imperium that Sanguinius fell. Can you imagine what he would make of the Imperium if he returned now? But man, how much does a 40k Imperium need a Primarch like the Angel? Now, the boarding torpedo hits its mark and collides with a Space Hulk, ripping and tearing its way through the hull. Calistarius, with his power sword and pistol in hand, disembarks onto the Space Hulk alone, ready for war. But he's not the first of the angels to be on here. He detects his brothers some 300 meters away and makes for their location. And then we arrive at a bit of a mystery story, and the reason for Calistarius to be called aboard. The scout force has, unbelievably, within a sealed, locked room, found a blood angel. And even more surprising, he's still alive, albeit barely, kept alive by his Terminator armor's life support in a suspended animation of sorts. He's literally on the brink of death. The inside of the chamber was lit only by the suit lights of Dionysus and brother Marciano. The latter stepped away from the door as he saw Calistarius approaching, allowing the librarian to see inside. The sergeant stood over another figure in bulky Terminator armor, slumped against the far bulkhead. Calistarius knew what to expect, but still experienced a moment of pause when he saw the Blood Angel's livery painted on the ancient suit of armor. Worse still were the many gashes in the heavy warplate. Much of the suit had been ripped away, the endoskeletal struts and fibre bundles twisted and tattered by immense tears. Dionysus shifted as the librarian entered, and for a moment his suit played light across the face of the injured Blood Angel. His mouth was locked in a bestial snarl, lips drawn back to expose dark gums, eyes glaring, glinting fiercely in the passing light. In the moment of contact, Calistarius felt madness. Deep, utter hatred and bloodlust surged into Librarian's thoughts, pounding upon his mind like hammer blows. Calistarius closed his mind off in an instant, shielding himself from the sensation as though it was an attack. "You know what this is?" Dionysus' voice was quiet over the voxlink. "Of course," said Calistarius. "The signs are obvious. Why did you request my presence, Brother Sergeant?" "Our initial landing and sweep detected nothing," the sergeant explained. "It was only when we were preparing to expand to the secondary perimeter that we detected the heat source of his suit. This is exactly how we found him, locked inside this empty armory magazine." "And you wish me to delve into his thoughts?" Calistarius kept his gaze fixed on the sergeant, not willing yet to look at the contorted features of the collapsed Space Marine. "What do you hope I will find there?" "Anything," whispered Dionysus. "Who is he? Why is he here? What did this to him?" "You have no hint of his identity? His suit transponder is dead. Why have you not transported him back to the battle barge? Does it look to you that he would survive the journey?" "No," admitted Calistarius. "What is the current tactical situation? Clearly he was attacked by something. No life signs detected by the surveyor sweep, and nothing on the sensorium, until we found this." Dionysus took a step toward the door. "It will be just the 6 of us for now. As soon as you can confirm whether there is a credible threat, the sooner our reinforcements will arrive." Calistarius nodded. "I shall endeavour to conclude this swiftly." The other 2 Blood Angels left the room. Dionysus stood at guard while Marciano moved out further to reinforce the perimeter defence. Calistarius looked at the broad back of the sergeant standing outside for a while, wondering if he should ask him to return. The Blood Angel they had found was in some kind of catatonic coma, but there was no way to predict what would happen when Calistarius began his psychic probing. "Sergeant," he said after considering the matter, "I would prefer it if you kept watch on my subject. While I am inside his mind, I will be vulnerable if he strikes out." "As you wish, brother." When the sergeant stepped back into the chamber, the lights of his warplate glinted from the splintered tines of the fallen Space Marine's claws. There was dried blood, not his own, splashed along the length. Calistarius crouched to examine them more closely. "I noticed that too," said Dionysus. "If his claws had been functioning, the energy sheath would have vaporized any exposed liquid." "He carried on fighting even after his claws stopped working?" "Curious, but not surprising. If he was gripped by... if the gene curse had possessed him, he would have no control over his actions. He would fight until dead. So why is he still alive? Perhaps he killed all his foes, leaving no evidence for us to find?" How would he have had the presence of mind to lock himself in here, if the Black Rage had him? You ask the same questions that provoked my call for assistance, Dionysus said pointedly. He gestured towards the near-dead Blood Angel. He has the answers. Now, on first reading, I certainly wasn't expecting a Space Hulk tale to step into the realms of a murder mystery of sorts. But it's actually a really intriguing surprise, and I found myself wondering what on earth he was doing there as much as the Blood Angels were. It really shows that there's so much more room for storytelling within the 40k universe than just simple battles. Now Calistarius reaches out into the mind of the fallen Blood Angel and is immediately assailed by the thoughts of the Black Rage, the raw strength and thirst to kill. But in fighting his way through it, he begins to encounter memories and begins to relive them as his own. The first, of course, is a vision of Sanguinius and his honour guard aboard the Vengeful Spirit. But then he views the true memories of the Blood Angel and his name, Vespersario. Fighting between the visions of the Rage and Vespersario's memories, Calistarius begins to find explanations. Gene stealers. And with that, Dionysus immediately begins ordering defensive stance and standard infestation protocols. Fall back to the beachhead and await reinforcements with a second wave. But Calistarius cannot leave. Not yet. What about Vespersario? Asked Calistarius. We cannot leave him here. This area is too tight for a solid defensive cordon against a superior foe, replied the sergeant. We need to withdraw to the outer galleries where we have better lines of fire. And abandon one of our own? That is not a Blood Angel. Dionysus' voice was harsh over the vox as he turned away. It is a hunk of meat kept alive by a combination of barely functioning life support systems. Calistarius was about to argue further, but the sergeant cut him off, his tone more conciliatory. When the secondary wave arrives, we shall make this chamber a primary objective. We can secure the area with more warriors and allow the apothecaries to do their work. It was hard for Calistarius to step away. He had shared Vespersario's thoughts and knew that there was something of the Space Marine still inside the broken body. He had made a connection with his battle brother, and he owed it to a fellow Blood Angel to ensure the best chance of survival. Vespersario had done all that he could, sealing himself inside this room, and somehow he had endured. Now that the Blood Angels had breached the door, there was nothing to stop the Gene Stealers finishing what they had begun so long ago. Calistarius was also prepared to admit to himself he was intrigued by the potential of examining the mind of a Black Rage victim in more detail. Normally delving into the thoughts of one of his brothers so deeply would be taboo, especially those beset by the blood curse. It was a unique opportunity to gain an insight into what the victims of the Black Rage experienced, and perhaps a chance to ease the suffering of others, or maybe even take a step closer to a cure. "Wait, Brother Sergeant," said the librarian. Dionysus was heading away down the corridor and did not stop. Why did he lock himself away like this? We have to find out. An easily defensible position to make a last stand against the Gene Stealers, replied Dionysus, still advancing along the passage. Little mystery to be explained, I think. A remarkably rational decision for one gripped by the madness of the Black Rage. Dionysus stopped at a junction a few dozen meters ahead and turned back to face the librarian. Your meaning? No plainer than what I have said, continued Calistarius. I do not have an answer to that, but from everything we know, he would not retreat, and he certainly would not have had the presence of mind to close and seal the bulkhead. Something strange happened here 2 centuries ago. I agree, and we shall uncover the truth of such events once we have properly secured a breachhead and expanded our cordon. Dionysus turned away. We must withdraw, brother. Captain Raphael had made it clear before Calistarius had departed that battlefield command fell to Sergeant Dionysus, a veteran of several centuries more than the librarian. Chapter Law demanded that Calistarius obeyed the direct command of his superior, but his every instinct was warning him otherwise. As a psyker, He knew instinct was often an indication of some deeper sense. When Dionysus realised that the librarian was not following, he stepped back into view. "Your orders are clear, brother. The warriors of the librarian are not immune to censure and punishment. Follow me." Calistarius used a subvocal command to switch to the command hail channel. "Captain Raphael, this is Lexicanium Calistarius. I must speak with you urgently." "Calistarius?" Raphael's voice was deep and rich, and he spoke calmly despite the unorthodox nature of Calistarius' communication. "This is the command channel. What has happened to Sergeant Dionysus? His transponder reports normal vital signs." "The sergeant is unharmed, Captain. We cannot withdraw. Not yet. I must continue my psychic scan of Brother Vespersario. Abort the reinforcement wave until I have completed my probe." There was a long pause before Raphael replied. "Second wave is being dispatched in 40 seconds. You have 30 to convince me." Calistarius quickly told the captain of his suspicions concerning Vespersario's behaviour. Raphael listened without interruption, and when the librarian finished, asked a simple question. "Are you willing to stake your honour and good name on this? Instinct?" There was no doubt in the librarian's mind. It was some unfocused warning from his psychic sense, a warp-powered intuition that made it more than a simple hunch. "Absolutely, brother captain. Delay the reinforcement wave for 5 minutes. That is all I ask." "Very well. You have 5 minutes. Boom, a nice little cliffhanger to end it on there. They've got 5 more minutes. What on earth is a Blood Angel afflicted by the Black Rage doing on a Space Hulk locked within a sealed room? And what involvement do the Gene Stealers play in all this? I guess this will just have to be continued until next time. Or if you can't wait for that, then of course you can just read the story. It's interesting to get a view of the character that was Calistarius before he became such an important character as Mephiston, and his views and interactions with the Black Rage, knowing what we do of his future. But as always, what did you guys think? I really like the Space Hulk tales. To me, that epitomises what is 40k. Terminator armoured Space Marines plunging through the void on a boarding torpedo, smashing into a Space Hulk. Now that is something I would like to see on screen. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. I love to read them. A huge thank you to all my subscribers. Your support really means a lot to me. It truly does. And if you're new, then please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. If you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too? But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.